John's vision of a comedy festival for Melbourne emerged as he was moving out of The Last Laugh. All the world's a stage for John, and he didn't have that particular stage anymore, so the stage became Melbourne.
Guests at Melbourne's Regency Hotel found the management had cooked up something a little different for breakfast this morning. As well as the large throng of Melbourne media, they had to cope with British funny man Peter Cook.
He got off the plane and John and the welcoming committee said, "We hail you as a living God." And by the time he was back at the hotel, we were in a state of hysterics. I mean, he managed to insult the owner of a four-star, five-star, I don't know, the top luxury hotel within 3 minutes of walking through the door.
Hi, media. Good morning, media.
I think, you know, in Australian terms, it was like Neil Armstrong had arrived back from the moon. Standing room only, there must have been 200 journalists in this room. And I think he just made some derogatory remarks about the festival.
Open!
Welcome to Melbourne's first International Comedy Festival!
We had the mock trial involving Peter Cook, in which the Chief Magistrate of Melbourne performed. We found that so enthusiastic was Melbourne at so many levels for the idea of its own innate funniness. You know, we're a witty bunch. And people happily put their hands up.
Those are the legs that were in my hotel.
I tended the legs, Your Honour. Yes, the legs will be exhibits B and C.
It gave Melbourne confidence in itself and created such a vibe. It was really, people just embraced it immediately. It was sort of thinking, everyone thought, well, yes, obviously, this is what Melbourne is.
Yeah, everybody here. Australians all their past rejoice, for we don't know these words. Sharon. Tra-la-la, GERT with nerds. And blah, blah, blah. And now we're coming to the really grouse bit. Advance Australia Fair. We're coming to the really grouse bit. Advance Australia Fair.
The framework for Melbourne's comedy was not the best in Australia, it was the best in the world. And that meant that the whole vision of what Melbourne comedians were being told to think about was not, well, after this I can go to Sydney. It was, after this I can go to Edinburgh, and maybe I can go to Montreal, and I might go to San Francisco and New York.
The festival was created really to kind of shine a spotlight on what Melbourne had to offer and on those venues that were existing back then. And they were amazing venues. I mean, Melbourne was so far ahead of anywhere else in Australia really at that point in terms of those indie venues and the kind of work that they were presenting, and it was incredibly innovative and adventurous and, you know, quite unique. There were amazing performers relative to the size of our population, the size of our city, the size of our country.
John's idea was, let the promoters do what they do, let the comedians do what they do, let's bring the city into it and turn it into one of those things where, like in Europe, you know, people climb to the top of a mountain of chairs and fight each other with croquembouches, you know. And that's what happened with the Comedy Festival. There was an immediate sense of ownership. It wasn't an event that you went to, it was a thing that you were in by virtue of living in Melbourne.
Eyes front. Up, 2, 3, 4. John 3:16. Yes, this is Melbourne, Baghdad of the South.
This seed fell upon fertile ground, struck root, grew 8 feet, and branches sprang out of it before our very eyes.
I think the Melbourne Comedy Festival shows Melbourne people that we can put on something huge and that we can palpably change our city for a month. When you arrive in town and the Melbourne Comedy Festival's on, you can't not notice it. There are queues of people on the streets, there are banners everywhere, there are cafes and bars full, there's stuff happening. People find that really exciting. They go into spaces and buildings that otherwise they don't go into. I mean, for example, the Americans who come here every year cannot believe that we are allowed to turn City Hall into comedy venues, where literally the Lord Mayor is sitting in his office just down the corridor. People will always go and see the household names and the higher profile people, but there's also that special comedy fan who want to be the first to see people. They want to be there at the beginning of someone's career. And it gives for people who live here, for people who work on the festivals, for all of, you know, the literally thousands of people who, be they front of house, you know, ushers or techies or box office, working on a big thing in a festival such as this, in the same way I see this happening in Edinburgh, it changes lives. It really, it creates career paths for people. It creates friendships. It creates artistic collaborations. It makes people better.